Hello, this is Miss McCoy. We're going to do a read aloud called Amelia and Eleanor for a Ride. It wasn't unusual for two friends to get together, but Eleanor was Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, who lived in the White House with her husband, President Franklin Roosevelt. Amelia was Amelia Earhart, the celebrated aviator who had been the first female pilot to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, and when two of the most famous and adventurous women in the world got together, something exciting was bound to happen. Washington, D.C. In a guest room at the White House, Amelia and her husband J.P. dressed for dinner. Amelia pulled on the long white evening gloves that were so different from the ones she sometimes wore while flying. Many people didn't understand why a woman would want to risk her life in a plane, but Amelia had said it more than once. It's for the fun of it. Besides, she loved the feeling of independence she had when she was in the cockpit. She carefully folded a gift for Eleanor, a silk scarf that matched her own. The powder blue with streaks of indigo reminded Amelia of the morning sky. Meanwhile, Eleanor dressed for dinner too. Her brother Hall would be escorting her this evening because the president had a meeting to attend. But Eleanor was used to that. She pulled on the long white evening gloves and that were so different from the ones she sometimes wore while driving. Then she peeked out the window at the brand new car that had just been delivered that afternoon. She couldn't wait to drive it. Many people thought it was too bold and dangerous for a woman to drive a car, especially the First Lady of the United States. But Eleanor always gave the same answer. It's practical, that's all. Besides, she loved the feeling of independence she had when she was behind the wheel. She loved driving. It was a brisk and cloudless April evening. The guests had gathered in the red room, and the table looked elegant, as even small dinner parties at the White House can be. Eleanor and Hall greeted Amelia and JP as well as several reporters and a photographer. Amelia gave Eleanor the scarf. "I love it," Eleanor exclaimed. "It's just like yours." Dinner started with George Washington's crab chowder. "This is delicious," said Amelia. "But if soup at the White House has such a fancy name, what will dessert be called? Perhaps Abraham Lincoln's peach cobbler? Or maybe Thomas Jefferson's custard?" They laughed as everyone took turns guessing. By the time they got to the roast duck, the conversation had turned to flying. "Miss Roosevelt just received her student pilot's license," said one of the reporters. Amelia wasn't surprised. She had been the one to encourage Eleanor. She knew her friend could do anything she set her mind to. "I'll teach you myself," offered Amelia. "I accept. Tell us, Amelia, what's it like to fly at night in the dark?" Everyone at the table leaned closer to hear. Very few people in the whole world had ever flown at night, and Amelia was one of them. Amelia's eyes sparkled. The stars glittered all about the scene, close enough to touch. At higher elevation, the clouds below shine white with dark islands, where the night sea shows through. I've seen the planet Venus setting on the horizon, and I've circled cities of twinkling lights. Their eyes are closed, so they're all thinking about it. "In the capital city at night?" asked Eleanor. "There's no describing it," said Amelia. "You just have to experience it on a clear night, when you can see forever." "Why, we should go tonight. We could fly the loop to Baltimore and back in no time." The Secret Service men protested. "This hasn't been approved." Nonsense, said Eleanor. If Amelia Earhart can fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, I can certainly take a short flight to Baltimore and back. Before dessert could be served, Amelia had called Eastern Air Transport and arranged a flight. Because she's the president's wife, so she could do that. Within an hour, Amelia and Eleanor boarded the Curtiss Condor twin-motor airplane. For a moment, both women looked up at the mysterious night sky. Then, without changing her gloves, Amelia slipped into the cockpit and took the wheel. The plane rolled down the runway faster and faster. Lights from the airstrip flashed in front of them, and they lifted into the dark. How amusing it is to see a girl in a white evening dress and high-heeled shoes flying a plane, Eleanor said. Amelia laughed as she made a wide sweep over Washington, D.C. and turned off all the lights in the plane. Out the window, the Potomac River glistened with moonshine. The Capitol dome reflected a soft golden halo, and the enormous light-drenched monuments looked like tiny miniatures. Soon the peaceful countryside gave way to shadowy woodlands. The Chesapeake Bay became a meandering outline on the horizon, and even though they knew it wasn't so, it seemed as if the plane crawled slowly through stark-struck space. Eleanor marveled. It's like sitting on the top of the world. Can you imagine your best friend take you on a secret plane ride? Wow, look at that. When it was time to land, Amelia carefully took the plane down. A group of reporters had gathered, anxious to ask questions. Miss Roosevelt, did you feel safe knowing a girl was flying that ship? Just as safe, said Eleanor. Did you fly the plane, Mrs. Roosevelt? Asked one reporter. What part did you like best? Said another. I enjoyed it so much, and no, I didn't actually fly the plane. Not yet, but someday I intend to. I was thrilled by the city lights, the brilliance of the blinking pinpoints below. Amelia smiled. She knew just how Eleanor felt. Because she felt that way one day. As the Secret Service agents drove them slowly back to the White House, Amelia and Eleanor agreed that there was nothing quite as exciting as flying. What could compare? Well, they admitted, maybe the closest thing would be driving in a fast car on a straightaway road with a stiff breeze blowing against your face. Arms linked, they walked up the steps to the White House. Eleanor whispered something to Amelia, and then they hesitated, letting the rest of the group walk ahead of them. Are you coming inside, Mrs. Roosevelt? Someone asked. But by then, they had wrapped their silk scarves around their necks and were hurrying toward Eleanor's new car. Without changing her gloves, Eleanor quickly slipped into the driver's seat and took her turn at the wheel. With the wind in their hair and the brisk air stinging their cheeks, they flew down the road. And after they had taken a ride about the city streets of Washington, D.C., they finally headed back to the White House. For dessert, Eleanor Roosevelt's pink clouds on angel food cake. The end. And there's a angel food cake recipe. So flour, egg whites, cream of tartar, sugar, almond flavoring, and salt. That sounds fun.